The morning sun of the Galactic Survival Academy shone through the large windows of Classroom 7B. It was not a real sun, of course. The Academy floated in deep space, far from any star, but the artificial light felt warm and real on the skin of those who sat inside. Ho sat in the back row. He was the only human in a class of 30 alien students. His desk was small compared to the others. The furniture in this room was built for beings much larger than him. His feet barely touched the floor when he sat down. Around him, students of many species talked and laughed. There was a group in the front row. They were tall creatures with blue skin and 4 arms. Behind them sat a species that looked like large wolves standing on 2 legs. Their fur was gray and their eyes glowed yellow in the dim corners of the room. Near the window, 3 students cleaned their claws. They were insect-like beings with hard shells covering their bodies. They were known across the galaxy as fierce hunters. Their mandibles clicked together as they spoke in their own language. Ho did not speak to anyone. He kept his eyes on his tablet and waited for class to begin. He had been at this academy for 6 months now. In that time, he had learned one important lesson. Most aliens did not think much of humans. The door at the front of the room slid open with a soft hiss. Professor walked in. The classroom fell silent at once. It was an impressive sight. He stood over 2 meters tall. His body was covered in dark green scales that shimmered under the lights. He had 6 legs and moved like a spider across the floor. His eyes, all 8 of them, scanned the room slowly. "Good morning, students," said. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "Good morning, Professor," the class replied together. Move to the center of the room. He pressed a button on his desk, and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed a planet covered in thick jungle. Rivers cut through the green like silver snakes. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks hidden by clouds. "This," said, pointing at the hologram, "is 4. A jungle moon in the outer systems. It will be the location of your final examination." Whispers spread through the classroom. Ho leaned forward in his seat. He had heard stories about 4. It was one of the most dangerous places in known space. The jungle was filled with predators. The plants themselves could kill. Very few beings went there by choice. "Your task is simple," continued. "You will be dropped on 4 with basic supplies. You will have 3 days to hunt and gather food. The student who brings back the most food will receive the highest grade. The student who brings back nothing will fail this course." A student raised his clawed hand. "Professor, will we hunt alone or in teams?" "Teams of 2, answered. "You may choose your own partner, but remember, in survival situations you can only trust yourself. Choose wisely." More whispers filled the room. Students began looking around, trying to find partners. Ho noticed that no one looked at him. His 8 eyes moved across the room. They stopped on Ho. The professor's mandibles clicked together. It was the way of smiling. "I see we have our human student in class today," said loudly. The room went quiet. "Tell me, human, do you plan to participate in this examination?" Ho felt every eye in the room turn toward him. He kept his face calm. "Yes, Professor, I plan to participate." Made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Interesting. 4 is not a place for soft species. The predators there are fast and deadly. They have claws and teeth designed for killing. What do humans have?" "We have our minds, Professor," Ho replied. This time the whole class laughed. They howled with amusement. They clicked their mandibles rapidly. Even the usually quiet chuckled among themselves. Raised one of his front legs for silence. "Your mind will not save you when a beast is chasing you through the jungle, human, but I admire your courage, or perhaps it is foolishness. We shall see." The professor turned back to the hologram and began explaining the rules of the examination. Ho listened carefully, but his mind was already working on a plan. He knew he could not outrun the predators of 4. He could not fight them with his bare hands. His body was weaker than almost every species in this room, but Ho had something they did not understand. He had thousands of years of human hunting knowledge stored in his memory. Humans had never been the strongest hunters on Earth. They were not the fastest. They did not have the sharpest claws or the biggest teeth, but humans had survived. They had done more than survive. They had become the top predators of their planet. They had done this with their minds. After class ended, Ho gathered his things slowly. The other students pushed past him, already talking excitedly about the hunt. They discussed which weapons they would bring. They boasted about how many creatures they would kill. "Hey!" Ho looked up. A young woman stood in front of his desk. She had black hair tied back in a simple ponytail. Her eyes were dark and sharp. She wore the same gray uniform as him. Another human. "I am," she said. "I am in the advanced biology class on the 3rd floor. I heard there was another human at this academy." Ho stood up and gave a small bow. "I am Ho. Nice to meet you." "Do you have a partner for the examination?" asked directly. Ho smiled slightly. "I do not think anyone here wants to team up with a human." Nodded. "Then we should work together. 2 humans are better than 1, yes." Ho looked at her for a moment. He saw intelligence in her eyes. He saw determination. He saw someone who, like him, had survived 6 months at an academy that did not want them. "Yes," he said, "I think that is a good idea." Smiled. It was the first real smile Ho had seen in months. "Good. We have 3 weeks before the examination. I suggest we start planning now." As they walked out of the classroom together, Ho noticed Professor watching them. The professor's 8 eyes followed them until they disappeared around the corner. His mandibles clicked slowly, thoughtfully. The human students were up to something, could sense it. But what could 2 weak humans possibly do on 4? The professor dismissed the thought and returned to his work. He would find out soon enough. In the hallway, Ho and found a quiet corner to talk. "I have been studying the wildlife of 4, said. "The creatures there are dangerous, but they follow patterns. They hunt in certain areas. They drink at certain times. They are predictable." Ho nodded. "And predictable creatures can be trapped." His eyes widened slightly. "You are thinking about traps." "I am thinking about hunting the human way," Ho replied. "Not with strength, not with speed, but with patience and planning." Was quiet for a moment, then she laughed softly. "The others think we are weak. They think we will fail." "Good," Ho said. "Let them think that. When they are chasing animals through the jungle, we will be waiting for the food to come to us." The 2 humans looked at each other. A silent understanding passed between them. They were not going to just survive this examination. They were going to show the entire academy what humans could do. 3 weeks was enough time to prepare. And when they landed on 4, Ho would teach his alien classmates a lesson they would never forget. Humans were not weak. They were patient. And patience in the wild was the deadliest weapon of all. The weeks before the examination passed quickly. Every day, Ho and met in the academy library to study. They read everything they could find about 4. They learned about its animals, its plants, its weather patterns. They memorized the maps of the jungle. They studied the behavior of the predators. At the same time, their classmates prepared in different ways. They spent their days in the combat training rooms. They practiced fighting with their claws. They ran on machines to build their speed. They were confident that their natural abilities would bring them victory. They practiced with hunting weapons. Their hard shells already protected them from most attacks. With weapons in their claws, they believed nothing could stop them. They used their 4 arms to train with nets and spears. They worked in groups, practicing how to surround and capture prey. They had hunted together for generations. This examination would be easy for them. No one paid attention to the 2 human students reading in the library. One evening, 10 days before the examination, Ho and were eating dinner in the cafeteria. The room was large and crowded. Students from all species sat at long tables, eating food from their home planets. Ho and sat alone at a small table in the corner. Their food was simple: rice, vegetables, and some protein substitute that tried to taste like meat. It was the only human food available at the academy. A shadow fell across their table. Ho looked up. A student stood over them. His name was. He was the largest student in their class. His gray fur was thick and his yellow eyes burned with amusement. Behind him stood two more and a group of students. "Look what we have here," said. His voice was like a growl. The two soft humans eating their plant food. The group behind him laughed. Kept eating. She did not look up. Ho put down his utensils and Met's eyes calmly. "Can we help you?" Ho asked. Leaned closer. His breath smelled like raw meat. "I heard you two signed up for the examination. I wanted to see if it was true." "It is true," Ho said. Laughed loudly. The sound echoed through the cafeteria. Other students began to watch. "This I must see. Two hairless, clawless, weak little humans trying to hunt on four. You will be dead within the first hour." "Perhaps," Ho replied calmly, "but we will try anyway." And student pushed forward. Her name was Vex. Her shell was dark red and her mandibles were sharp. "I have seen humans before," she clicked. "On my home world we keep them as workers. They break easily. Their bones snap. Their skin tears. They are good for nothing but simple labor." The group laughed again. Finally looked up. Her face was calm but her eyes were cold. "Then why are you worried about us?" Vex's mandibles clicked angrily. "Worried about you? Do not make me laugh, human female." "I am not trying to make you laugh," said. "I am asking a question. If we are so weak and useless, why did you come all the way across the cafeteria to talk to us? Why does need 5 friends to face 2 humans?" Silence fell over the group. His yellow eyes narrowed. Ho hid a small smile. Was smart. She knew how to hit back without using her fists. "Watch your words, human," growled. "On 4, there will be no teachers to protect you. If we find you in the jungle, we might just leave you there for the predators." "That would be against the rules," Ho said. "Professor said all students must return safely." Showed his teeth. In the culture, it was a threat. Accidents happen in the jungle, people get lost, people disappear. Who would miss 2 humans? Ho stood up slowly. He was shorter than, much shorter. The towered over him like a mountain of gray fur, but Ho did not back down. "I understand," Ho said. "You are afraid." His eyes went wide. "What did you say?" "You are afraid," Ho repeated. "Not of us, but of failing. You have spent your whole life being told you are the greatest hunters in the galaxy, the wolf warriors, but deep down you are scared that you might not win, so you come here to threaten us, to make yourselves feel strong." The cafeteria was completely silent now. Every student watched the confrontation. His claws extended. They were long and sharp, capable of cutting through metal. "I could kill you right now, human. One swipe and your head would roll across this floor." Ho did not move. "You could, but you will not, because then you would be expelled, and you would never get the chance to prove yourself on 4. You need this examination. You need to show everyone that they are as strong as everyone says." Stood frozen. His claws trembled with rage, but he did not attack. Stood up beside Ho. "We are not your enemies," she said. "We are your classmates. We all want to pass this examination. There is no need for threats." For a long moment no one moved, then pulled back his claws. He snorted loudly. "Fine, humans, keep your heads for now." He turned to leave, then stopped. "But when we are on 4, do not expect any help from us. You will be on your own." "We always are," Ho replied. And his group walked away. The cafeteria slowly returned to normal. Students began talking again, but many still glanced at the 2 humans in the corner. Sat back down, she let out a long breath. "That was dangerous. You could have made him attack." Ho sat down as well. His hands were shaking slightly under the table, but his face showed nothing. "I know, but backing down would have been worse. They would have kept bothering us until the examination." Nodded slowly. "You understand how predators think." "All bullies are predators," Ho said, "and all predators can be predicted. They look for weakness. They attack when they think they can win easily, but when their prey stands firm, they hesitate." Picked up her utensils and continued eating. "I hope you are right, because on 4 we will face real predators, not just angry students." "The real predators will be easier," Ho said. "They do not have pride to hurt, they just want food, and that makes them simple to understand." Later that night, Ho sat alone in his room. It was a small space, barely big enough for a bed and a desk. The window looked out into the darkness of space. Stars twinkled in the distance like tiny lights. He thought about what had happened in the cafeteria. He thought about threats. He thought about the examination. The truth was, Ho was scared, not of the aliens, not of the hunting exam. He was scared of failing. He was scared of proving everyone right about humans. For 6 months he had been told he did not belong at this academy. He had been called weak, soft, useless. He had been ignored by teachers and avoided by students. He had eaten alone, studied alone, lived alone. But now he had a partner, and together they would show the galaxy what humans could do. Ho opened his tablet and began reviewing his notes on 4. He studied the maps again. He memorized the locations of water sources. He learned which areas had the most animal activity. Then he began to plan his traps. Humans had been building traps for hundreds of thousands of years. Snares to catch rabbits, pits to catch mammoths, nets to catch fish. Every culture on Earth had developed its own methods. Ho knew them all. He would need to adapt these techniques for 4. The materials would be different. The animals would be different, but the basic ideas were the same. Find where the prey goes, set a trap in that location. Wait. While Thean chased animals through the jungle, Ho would let the animals come to him. While they exhausted themselves with running and fighting, he would rest and wait. While they returned empty-handed and tired, he would return with more food than anyone thought possible. Ho smiled in the darkness of his room. The aliens thought humans were weak because they could not see human strength. They measured power in claws and teeth and speed. They did not understand that the greatest weapon was the one between their ears. In 9 days, the examination would begin. In 9 days, Ho would teach them a lesson about humanity, and they would never look at humans the same way again. The transport ship broke through the thick clouds of 4. Inside, 30 students sat in rows of metal seats. The ship shook and rattled as it descended through the atmosphere. Through the small windows, they could see nothing but gray mist. Ho sat beside near the back of the ship. They wore simple survival suits, gray and lightweight, not like the heavy armor some alien students had brought. In their bags, they carried only basic supplies: rope, a knife, a container for water, and some emergency food rations. The other students had brought much more. They carried long spears with sharp metal points. They had brought nets made of strong fiber. They had portable stun weapons that could knock out prey from a distance. Professor stood at the front of the ship. His 8 eyes scanned the students. "Remember the rules," he called out over the noise of the engines. "You have 3 days. Hunt what you can. Gather what you find. Return to the pickup point before sunset on the 3rd day. Anyone who fails to return will be searched for but will automatically fail the examination." His eyes found Ho and his mandibles clicked slowly. "Any questions?" No one spoke. "Good, prepare for landing." The ship dropped lower. Suddenly the clouds cleared and 4 appeared below them. The sight made several students gasp. The jungle stretched in all directions like a green ocean. Trees taller than buildings reached toward the sky. Rivers cut through the forest like silver ribbons. Mountains rose in the distance, their peaks still hidden by clouds. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. The ship landed in a large clearing. The door opened and hot, wet air rushed inside. It smelled like growing things and rotting leaves and something else, something wild and dangerous. One by one, the teams jumped out of the ship. They ran into the jungle immediately, howling with excitement. They moved quickly and quietly, disappearing into the undergrowth. They worked together, forming a line and moving as a group. Ho and were the last to leave the ship. Professor watched them with his many eyes. "Good luck, humans," he said. There was no kindness in his voice, just curiosity, like a scientist watching an experiment. Ho nodded, "Thank you, Professor." The two humans walked into the jungle as the ship rose back into the sky. Within moments they were alone. The sounds of other students faded away. The only noise was the endless song of the jungle, insects buzzing, birds calling, leaves rustling in the wind. "Which way?" asked. Ho pulled out a small map he had drawn from memory. "East. There is a river about 2 kilometers from here. Animals need water. They will come to drink. That is where we set our first traps." They moved through the jungle carefully. The ground was soft and covered with dead leaves. Vines hung from the trees like curtains. Strange flowers bloomed in bright colors, some of them larger than Ho's head. Studied the plants as they walked. "Those red ones are poisonous," she said, pointing at a cluster of flowers. "The blue ones too, but the yellow fruits on that tree over there are safe to eat. I read about them in my research." Ho smiled. "Good, we can gather some later. For now, focus on the traps." They reached the river after an hour of walking. It was wider than Ho had expected. The water was clear and moved slowly. The banks were covered in soft mud, marked with dozens of animal tracks. "Look at these," said, kneeling beside the tracks. "These are from runners, small creatures about the size of a large rabbit. They are fast but not dangerous. Good eating." Ho examined other tracks nearby, and these larger ones. "Thornbacks, medium-sized. They have sharp spines on their backs for defense, but their meat is excellent. They consider them a delicacy." Ho nodded. "Then these are what we hunt. Show me where they come to drink." They walked along the river bank until they found a small clearing. The mud here was thick with tracks. This was clearly a popular spot for animals to drink. "Perfect," Ho said. He set down his bag and pulled out his rope. "We will set snares here, simple loops that tighten when an animal steps through them. The runners will walk right into them." Watched as Ho began to work. His hands moved quickly and surely. He tied loops in the rope and attached them to flexible branches. When an animal triggered the trap, the branch would spring up and catch the creature. "How do you know how to do this?" asked. Ho did not stop working. "My grandfather was a hunter. He grew up in the mountains of Korea. He taught me everything about traps when I was young. I never thought I would use this knowledge on an alien moon." Began to help, following Ho's instructions. Together, they set up 12 snares around the drinking spot. The traps were almost invisible, hidden in the grass and leaves. When they finished, Ho moved further into the jungle. "Now we need bigger traps for the thornbacks." He found a narrow path through the trees. The ground was packed hard from many feet walking the same route. This was an animal trail. The creatures of 4 used these paths every day to move through the forest. "Here," Ho said. He began to dig using his knife and his hands. The soil was soft and came up easily. He dug a hole about 1 meter deep and 2 meters wide. Understood immediately, a pit trap. "Yes, we cover it with branches and leaves. The thornback walks across, falls in, cannot climb out. Simple." It took several hours to dig the pit. When they finished, both humans were covered in dirt and sweat, but they were not done yet. "We need to disguise it," Ho said. He gathered thin branches and laid them across the hole. Then he covered the branches with leaves and dirt until the pit was invisible. They built 3 more pit traps along the animal trail. Each one took time and effort. By the time they finished, the sun was beginning to set. "We should find shelter," said. "4 is more dangerous at night." They found a large tree with thick branches and climbed up. The tree was easy to climb, with rough bark that gave good grip. They settled on a wide branch about 10 meters above the ground. "From here we can watch our traps," Ho said, "and we are safe from ground predators." As darkness fell over the jungle, new sounds began. The daytime insects went quiet. Night creatures started to wake up. Somewhere in the distance, something roared. It was a deep, powerful sound that made Ho's chest vibrate. "Beast," whispered. "The apex predator of this moon, they hunt at night." Ho nodded. He was not worried. Beasts hunted on the ground. Up in the tree they were safe. Below them, the jungle came alive with movement. Small creatures ran through the undergrowth. Larger shapes moved between the trees. Eyes glowed in the darkness, reflecting the light of the 3 moons that rose over the horizon. Leaned against the tree trunk. "The others are probably chasing animals through this right now, running and fighting in the dark." Ho smiled. "Let them run, let them fight. We will wait here and let our traps do the work." As the night passed, Ho heard sounds from their snares by the river, small squeaks and struggles. The traps were catching runners. By morning they would have their first food. The 2 humans took turns sleeping. One watched while the other rested. The jungle sang its strange song all around them. Animals hunted and were hunted. Life and death played out in the darkness below. When the sun rose over 4, Ho and climbed down from their tree. They were rested and ready. "Time to check our traps," Ho said. They walked back to the river. At the first snare, they found a runner hanging from a branch. It was a small creature with soft brown fur and large ears. It had stopped struggling hours ago. 1 counted. The second snare held another runner. The third was empty. The 4th and 5th had catches. By the time they checked all 12 snares, they had 7 runners. 7 catches from 12 traps, Ho said. "Good numbers." Then they checked the pit traps. The first 2 were empty, but the third one held a surprise. Looked down into the pit and her eyes went wide. "Ho, come look at this." Ho walked over and looked down. In the pit, snorting angrily, was a large thornback. It was the size of a big dog. Sharp spines covered its back. It tried to climb the walls but kept sliding back down. "Excellent," Ho said with a grin. "Our first big catch." The 4th pit trap held another thornback, smaller than the first but still a good size. By midday of the first day, Ho and had caught 7 runners and 2 thornbacks, more food than many teams would catch in the entire examination. And they still had 2 more days. Ho reset the traps and began planning where to set more. The jungle of 4 had seemed so dangerous, so impossible. But now, watching their traps fill with food, Ho felt something he had not felt in a long time. Confidence, pride, hope. Somewhere out there, and the other were running through the jungle, chasing animals with their spears. They were using their strength and speed, just as their ancestors had always done. But here, in a quiet corner of the jungle, 2 humans were hunting in a different way. The human way, and it was working better than anyone could have imagined. The second day on 4 brought rain. It fell in heavy sheets that turned the jungle floor into mud. Thunder rolled across the sky and lightning lit up the forest in bright flashes. Ho and stayed in their tree watching the storm from above. The rain did not bother them. In fact, it helped. "Rain makes animals hungry," Ho explained. "They hide during the storm. When it stops, they come out to find food and water. Our traps will be waiting." The storm lasted most of the morning. When it finally stopped, the jungle seemed to come alive all at once. Birds flew from tree to tree. Small creatures ran through the wet grass. The air smelled fresh and clean. The 2 humans climbed down and checked their traps. The results were amazing. The snares by the river had caught 15 runners overnight. The rain had driven them to the water in large numbers. Nearly every trap had worked perfectly. The pit traps held 4 more thornbacks. One of them was the biggest Ho had seen yet. It took both humans working together to pull it out using ropes. "This is more than I expected," said, looking at the pile of catches. "How will we carry all of this?" Ho was already thinking about that. He used his knife to cut long branches and tied them together to make a simple frame. Then he attached vines to create a sled that could be dragged along the ground. "Human invention," he said with a smile. "Our ancestors used these to move heavy loads thousands of years ago." They loaded the sled with their catches and continued hunting. Ho set new traps in different locations. He found another animal trail and built 2 more pit traps. He set snares near a berry bush that animals like to eat from. By the afternoon of the second day, they had caught more food than they could easily carry. Ho had to build a second sled to hold everything. But not everything was easy. Around midday, they had a dangerous encounter. Ho was setting a snare when grabbed his arm. "Do not move," she whispered. About 20 meters away, standing in a patch of sunlight, was a beast. It was massive. The creature stood 3 meters tall at the shoulder. Its body was covered in dark scales that blended with the shadows of the jungle. 6 legs supported its weight. Its head was long and narrow, with rows of teeth visible in its open mouth. The beast had not seen them yet. It was sniffing the air, trying to find the source of a scent. Ho held perfectly still. His heart pounded in his chest, but he controlled his breathing. Moving would draw attention. Standing still might let them survive. The beast turned its head slowly. Its eyes passed over the spot where the 2 humans stood. For a terrible moment, Ho thought it had seen them. Then the creature turned away. Something else had caught its attention. It moved off through the jungle, disappearing into the trees without a sound. Let out a long breath. That was close. "Too close," Ho agreed. "We need to be more careful. The beasts are hunting too." They continued their work but stayed more alert. They watched for signs of large predators. They listened for sounds of movement in the undergrowth. They were prey animals on this moon, and they never forgot it. On the morning of the 3rd day, Ho and made their final trap check. The results were incredible. In total, over the 3 days, they had caught 32 runners, 9 thornbacks, and a handful of other small animals. They had also gathered baskets of edible fruits and roots that had identified. Their 2 sleds were overflowing with food. It was more than they could eat in a month. It was more than the whole class could eat in a week. "Let us head to the pickup point," Ho said. "I want to see what the others caught." They dragged their sleds through the jungle, following the map to the meeting location. It was hard work. The sleds were heavy and the ground was uneven, but they took turns pulling and made steady progress. When they reached the pickup clearing, they found chaos. Teams were scattered around the open space. Many students were sitting on the ground, exhausted. Some were injured. A student had deep scratches on his arm from some animal fight, and was missing parts of her shell, cracked and broken from a fall. And nearly everyone had very little food. The team had managed to catch 3 small animals. Just 3. After 3 days of running and fighting through the jungle, they had almost nothing to show for it. They had done a little better. They had 7 catches in total, but they were tired and hungry. They had used most of their energy hunting and had not eaten well. They were the best of the alien teams. They had caught 12 animals working together, but even they looked worn out and disappointed. Then Ho and arrived, dragging their 2 overloaded sleds into the clearing. The entire area went silent. Every eye turned to the 2 humans. Every alien stared at the mountains of food being pulled behind them. Stood up slowly, his yellow eyes were wide with disbelief. What is that?" Ho stopped in the middle of the clearing. He was tired and dirty, but he stood straight. "This is our catch. 32 runners, 9 thornbacks, various small animals, and some gathered plants." The silence stretched on. No one could find words. Professor pushed through the crowd. His 8 eyes moved back and forth, counting the catches on the human sleds. His mandibles clicked faster and faster. "This is impossible," and students said. "How could 2 humans catch more than all of us combined?" "We used traps," explained simply. "We did not chase the animals, we let the animals come to us." "Traps," another student repeated. That is cheating." "It is not cheating," Professor said finally. His voice was quiet but firm. "There were no rules against using traps. There were no rules saying you must hunt by chasing. The assignment was to bring back food. The humans have brought back the most food, by far." Stepped forward. His fur was matted with mud and his eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep. He had spent 3 days running through the jungle, hunting with his strength and speed, just like his ancestors, and he had almost nothing to show for it. "This is wrong," he growled. "Hunting is about strength, about skill, about being a predator. What they did, setting traps and waiting, that is not real hunting." Ho faced calmly. "Is hunting about proving how strong you are, or is hunting about getting food? We have food. You do not. Tell me again who is the better hunter." His claws extended. For a moment Ho thought he might attack, but then something unexpected happened. Stomach growled loudly. The big had not eaten properly in 3 days. He was hungry, exhausted, and humiliated, and standing right in front of him were 2 sleds full of food. Stepped forward. She reached into one of the sleds and pulled out a runner. She held it out toward. "Are you hungry?" she asked simply. Stared at the offered food. His pride wanted him to refuse. His stomach wanted him to accept. The battle played out across his face. Around the clearing, other students watched silently. They were all hungry too. They had all failed to catch enough food, and now a human was offering to share. Slowly reached out and took the runner from his hands. He did not say thank you. He could not bring himself to speak, but he took the food. That broke the dam. Other students began to approach, and all of them hungry, all of them humbled. They had mocked the humans for weeks. They had called them weak and soft, and now the humans had more food than anyone. Ho looked at, she nodded. "We have enough for everyone," Ho announced. "Sit down, rest. We will cook the meat and share it." For the next hour, the clearing transformed. Students who had been competitors became companions around a fire. Ho showed them how to prepare the meat, how to cook it over flames, how to make it taste better with simple techniques. The aliens ate and talked and laughed. The tension and competition of the examination melted away. For the first time in 3 days, they were not rivals. They were just hungry beings, sharing a meal together. Professor watched all of this with his 8 eyes. His mandibles clicked softly, thoughtfully. He had expected the humans to fail. He had expected them to die or give up or come back with nothing. Instead, they had won, completely and totally won, and then they had shared their victory with everyone. The professor had been teaching at this academy for 30 years. He had seen students from hundreds of species. He thought he understood what made a good survivor, a good hunter, a good predator. But watching these 2 humans, realized he had been wrong. He had been measuring success by the wrong standards. Strength and speed and claws were not the only paths to survival. Sometimes the greatest strength was in the mind, and sometimes the greatest victory was one that was shared. The transport ship rose above the jungles of 4 and disappeared into the clouds. Inside, 30 students sat quietly. The mood was different from the journey down 3 days ago. Then there had been excitement and boasting. Now there was thoughtful silence. Ho sat by the window, watching the jungle grow smaller below. Beside him was already asleep, her head resting against the metal wall. She had earned the rest. Across the aisle sat alone. His eyes were fixed on the floor. He had not spoken since the meal in the clearing, but every few minutes he glanced over at the 2 humans. His expression was unreadable. When the ship finally docked at the Galactic Survival Academy, The students filed out slowly. Everyone was tired and dirty and ready for showers and sleep. All students will report to classroom 7B tomorrow at standard hour, Professor announced as they left the ship. We will review the results of the examination. Ho and walked to their rooms without talking to anyone. There was nothing more to say. The results would speak for themselves. The next morning, classroom 7B was completely full, not just with the students who had participated in the examination, but with others from different classes. Word had spread through the academy like fire. The human students had done something impossible. Everyone wanted to hear about it. Ho and took their usual seats in the back row. This time, no one laughed at them. No one whispered jokes. Students from other species actually nodded at them as they passed. Some even made space for them to sit. Professor entered the room and the talking stopped immediately. He moved to the front of the class, his 8 eyes scanning the crowd. This examination was designed to test survival skills, began. The ability to hunt, to gather, to live off the land. These are essential abilities for any being who might find themselves stranded on an unknown world. He pressed a button on his desk, and a hologram appeared. It showed a chart with the names of all the teams and their final catches. Most of the alien teams had caught between 5 and 15 animals. The team, with 12 catches, had been considered the leaders until the final day. But at the top of the chart, far above everyone else, was one team. Team 14, Ho and 32 runners, 9 thornbacks, 17 additional small catches, total 58 animals, plus significant gathered plant food. The numbers glowed on the screen. Several students gasped, even though many of them had been there to witness it. Turned to face the class. I have been a teacher at this academy for 30 years. In that time, I have supervised over 100 hunting examinations on various planets. I have never seen results like these. He paused, letting his words sink in. When I assigned this examination, I expected the students to perform best. They are natural predators with speed and strength. I expected them to do well with their teamwork and armor. I expected the humans to fail. 8 eyes found Ho. I was wrong. The classroom was absolutely silent. The human students did not try to compete on terms set by other species. They did not try to run faster than or fight harder than. Instead, they used a different approach entirely, an approach that I, in my arrogance, had never considered. Professor walked slowly across the front of the room, trapping, using the environment, setting snares and pits and letting prey come to them. This is not a technique commonly used in the galaxy. Most hunting species rely on direct confrontation. They chase, they fight, they overpower, but humans evolved differently. He turned to face the class fully. On their home world, humans were not the strongest predators. They were not the fastest. They did not have claws or fangs or armor. By any measure, they should have gone extinct millions of years ago, but they did not. They survived. They thrived. They became the dominant species on their planet. How? The question hung in the air. Ho stood up slowly. Every eye in the room turned to him. For a moment, he considered staying quiet and letting the professor continue, but this was a lesson that needed to be heard from a human. We survived because we thought differently, Ho said. His voice was calm and clear. We could not outrun the predators, so we made traps to catch them. We could not fight the cold, so we made fire and clothing. We could not eat most plants, so we learned to cook food. Every problem we faced, we solved with our minds. He looked around the room at the faces of aliens who had laughed at him for months. You call us soft, weak. Maybe we are compared to your bodies, but our ancestors stood on a planet full of creatures that could kill us easily. And we did not just survive. We became the hunters. Every predator on Earth, every animal that once chased us through the forests and plains, we hunted them. We ate them. Some of them we made extinct. The room was completely silent. You measure strength by claws and teeth, by speed and power, But that is a narrow way of seeing strength. The strongest species is not the one with the biggest muscles. It is the one that survives. And humans have been surviving for 200,000 years, using nothing but our minds and our hands. Ho sat back down, gave him a small smile. Professor nodded slowly. Thank you, Ho. He turned back to the class. Let this examination be a lesson to all of you. Do not underestimate beings who appear weak. Do not assume that your way is the only way. The galaxy is vast and full of surprises. Species that seem harmless might have abilities you cannot imagine. He looked directly at the students. Strength is useful, speed is useful, but they are tools, nothing more. The greatest tool is the mind, and in that arena humans are formidable. After the class ended, students gathered around Ho, but not to mock them, to ask questions. How did you know where to put the traps? And student asked. I watched the animal trails, Ho explained. Animals follow patterns. They drink at the same spots, walk the same paths. Once you understand their patterns, catching them is simple. Can you teach us? I asked. Ho blinked in surprise. No one had ever asked him to teach them anything. Yes, I can try. The crowd parted as approached. The big stood in front of Ho, his yellow eyes no longer hostile. They were thoughtful, maybe even respectful. I owe you an apology, said. The words seemed difficult for him. I said things before the examination, threats. I was wrong. Ho nodded. We all make mistakes. I thought humans were prey animals, continued. I thought you were weak because you do not have claws or fangs, but I understand now. You are predators too, just a different kind. He held out his clawed hand. It was a human gesture of peace, one that must have researched. Ho took the hand and shook it. Maybe we can hunt together next time. I can show you how to make traps. You can show me how to use a spear. Smiled. It was strange to see on his wolf-like face, but it was genuine. I would like that. As the weeks passed, things changed at the Galactic Survival Academy. Ho and were no longer outcasts. They sat with other students at meals. They were invited to study groups. They were asked for advice on upcoming examinations. But more importantly, the way aliens saw humans began to shift. The story of the 4 examinations spread beyond the academy. It was told on ships and stations across the sector. 2 humans, considered the weakest members of their class, had beaten everyone using nothing but their minds. Some species heard the story and laughed. They still thought humans were soft and harmless, but others listened more carefully. They began to understand something important. Humans were not predators like Or. They were a different kind of predator entirely. They did not have claws or fangs or armor, but they had something more dangerous. They had patience. They had creativity. They had the ability to look at any problem and find a solution. And in a galaxy full of strong, fast, powerful species, that made humans the most dangerous creatures of all. On the last night before summer break, Ho sat on an observation deck. The stars stretched out before them, countless points of light in the endless darkness. Do you think things will really change? Asked. Or will they go back to treating us like prey once summer ends? Ho considered the question. Some will change, some will not, but that is okay. We do not need everyone to respect us. We just need to keep being what we are. And what are we? Ho smiled at the stars. We are human, we are survivors, we are problem solvers, and we have been underestimated for 200,000 years. It is our greatest advantage. Laughed softly. Being underestimated is an advantage. Of course, Ho said. Every time someone looks at us and sees weakness, they make a mistake, and that mistake gives us the opportunity to surprise them, just like we surprised our classmates on 4. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere out there, billions of species lived on billions of worlds. Most of them had never met a human. Most of them had never even heard of Earth. But slowly, story by story, the truth was spreading across the galaxy. Humans were not weak. Humans were not prey. Humans were something new, something different, something the galaxy had never seen before. And the galaxy was just beginning to understand what that really meant.